The Morgan Report with David Morgan. Discover how to build and protect your wealth at themorganreport.com.
All right, welcome everyone. This is David Morgan, themorganreport.com for the weekly perspective for the week ending, I think it's 6 December 2024. Wow, how a year goes by. With me today, I thought I'd do something very different. It's my friend, I call him a colleague, David DuByne from Adapt 2030. I think that's still the name of your YouTube channel. I know you're on Instagram now. We'll get to that at the end, but I want to start out by saying, people have asked me, in fact, more and more often, it seems like we're getting more and more information, disinformation, and people are saying, well, who do you trust, David? Who do you listen to? And, really, it's a handful, and you're one of them. So I thought I'd just bring you on, people to have a look at you, but I want to start off and kind of pat myself and yourself on the back a little bit. But I remember distinctly being in Mexico and doing, I think, one of our first or second interviews together, and we talked about the food crisis about 2 years before it actually came to fruition on the mainstream media. Not that we always have that kind of visionary farsightedness, but we did at that. And we're looking ahead here. And the reason I brought you on is just, again, to introduce you to my audience, which many of them know you. But what you did recently on one of your more recent YouTubes about the exotics, the metals that no one can pronounce, like gallium, for example, or iridium. There's a lot of these metals that no one even knows where they are in a periodic chart, yet they're absolutely essential, just like silver, to the manufacturing of the high-tech situation. And so let me quit yak and turn it over to you. Start wherever you'd like with food and work from there. Tell us about summarize, if you would please, this problem that you see with this Trump tariff / backlash with metals or resource wars, I'll call it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, and thank you for the kind compliment. It's just, the reading what is planned or what's projected, and once you start to know where the world is going to be taken from here to there, if it is in that direction, then you would look for these benchmarks. And that's, it's just really digging down and reading the reports. Not a lot of people read into the Bank for International Settlements reports. I know you do. I try to. But there is an entire network and an entire game plan to move the world from where we are now into the world they want it to be. And if it does trend that direction, you're obviously going to hit some of these points along the line. And then you can, all right, that's a trajectory. And all right, we know that food is going to absolutely be used as maybe a weapon is the wrong word to use, but control mechanism for the masses is one way to look at it. And, Trump came into office, and that's great. We're going to get a reprieve from communism here for a moment. But at the same time, with not even at president yet saying we're going to put 100% tariffs on the BRICS. We're going to have 100% tariff if you don't want to use the US dollar. Well, during those last 4 to 5 years, the BRICS got really pretty organized. I'm not going to say they're incredibly organized, but they did start an alternative to the SWIFT system called BRICS Pay. They're interoperating with their currencies. They're trading commodities amongst each other for the fair value of the commodity to commodity. But, that's all, water under the bridge. But here's the thing now. Once I started reading in the Chinese media, the translated version, what they were calling rare earth oxides, that was the umbrella category of the cutoff, to cut off America. And since tomorrow's December 7th, 1941, when Pearl Harbor started, talking about the military, they are trying to cut the legs out of the military and also cut off our semiconductor industry by immediately shutting off gallium, germanium, and antimony. But in addition to that, look for shut off and complete, turning the knob off of what they call the rare earth oxide class of, and you know better than I what that would entail. But that's where we sit. They have decapitated or are trying to decapitate the monster. 98% of all gallium production on the planet comes from China. So without that one critical mineral, military industrial complex or the weapons manufacturing ceases, at least until they find a replacement. Now, could Canada import it and then re-import it into the United States? Yes, but also the hearsay is when China finds out there's a re-importer exporter of their metals to the United States, they in turn will be cut off. So it seems like, you want to play this way, we're going to play this way. Or is it everybody playing on the same stage and we're all being duped? And this truly is the Great Reset or the Dark Winter in play. Just now there'll be a lot of excuses to point fingers there and point, they did it, and it'll just divide people further. And maybe that's the plan. But I'm seeing it right in front of us. Military hardware is going to come up against a brick wall. And if we can't manufacture, then where do we go, David? I'm curious if we are stuck and we are where we stay is where we stay. then what kind of threat are we, or how powerful are we across the rest of the world in the eyes of, well, they can't even manufacture weapons. So what threat are they now?
I just offline before we started, we talked a little bit about Jim G. Rickard's put out today, I think, about the weapon supply the United States has and how far it's been depleted. And really, we couldn't go into a major war unless we restocked. But very few people are even cognizant of that. And I also like the way you think, because is it, as you said, are we all being duped? Is this sort of the AB, the Hegelian dialectic one more time, which seems to be happening over and over, and yet people really, a lot of us catch on to it, but a lot of people don't. So are we being played? It's very, very disheartening, because this idea that someone could come to power and make everything good again and great again, and happy times are here again, when a realist would look at, what is your production? What's your manufacturing base? What do you produce? And what do you produce that's needed? Basically, it's food, number one. And if you go beyond that, what are you going to trade the food for? And if you look at the manufacturing base, China's in a rut right now, at least my understanding. It's so hard to know if you're getting good or disinformation or not. But the sources that I trust look like they're on the decline temporarily, but they're very smart and long-term oriented. So I don't have an answer for you. I think you brought up the questions that should just remain questions, but it obviously is degrading. And that's, I think, the point that I want to make, or have you back me up on, or you make the point that as this thing unravels, you have these what's called unintended consequences. And so if this war machine, let's say, gets curtailed because of a certain element, what happens next? Does that make you angry and you decide to pull out the nuke or the rods from God or whatever these other deployment means that exist come to the fore? I mean, people that get pushed that do not have a good grounding can do things unexpectedly that have dire consequences for all of us. Could you comment on that?
Yeah, that's why you should leave peaceful men alone. Because once you push them into that position, you described exactly, nobody knows what they're going to do. And generally, when they do it, it's exponentially further swinging the pendulum than you ever thought possible. Leave the peaceful people alone. They need to be left alone. So, you're looking at this thing here, and I wanted to back up onto the food. Now, South Africa, a major corn exporter for inter-Africa. So an enormous amount of corn, I would even say well over 90% of all South African production finds its way across Africa. It doesn't really leave the African continent. But this year, they have to import corn because their production is so low. So then Ukraine's offline, and that was another major supplier into Africa, was some of the corn from Ukraine. So now they're getting it from two different pincer points. What happens? Where are they going to go on the market to get it, and what are they willing to trade for that in exchange for the food? Now you're getting into something that takes it a level up. Okay, some nations are bound by BRICS, but what happens when they can't feed their people? A lot of this geopolitics and the chess pieces on the board are going to change when hunger comes into it. And that is truly the wild card. So, focusing on rare earth minerals, okay, great. But focusing on lack of food, which is now discernible, measurable, and showing a downtrend, is almost the equivalent on the uptrend of control of humanity and the speed at which a lot of policies are being implemented. So I think there's some inverse ratio going on. The more measurable and noticeable the crop losses are on a year-to-year basis, the faster something has to happen in terms of, I guess, a timeline would be the best way to look at it. But make no mistake, food will be used as the number one weapon. So you might talk about nukes. No, that's nothing in comparison to food. So now you almost need to start looking at who's being strong-armed and guaranteed food deliveries from the United States into these some BRICS-aligned nations to make sure they feed their populace so their populace doesn't overthrow them because of hunger. Now we're putting a whole different dimension into it there.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, and couldn't agree more. Well, I promise I won't take a lot of your time. I know you've had kind of a long day. Let me give it back to you to summarize whatever you want in 5 minutes. Tell us about. I think you do a weekly report that we should all know about, and then I think you also just started a channel on Instagram. So kind of let us know where we can find you. And I think there's a weekly summary, if I remember right, that I would encourage people. Again, I'm going to go circle back to the front, but the last person asked me, well, who do you trust? Who do you listen to? forgive me, your name didn't pop in my head at that time, but I thought I'd just do this instead, and probably will reach more people. And just, I don't know. I hate to be a grumpy old man, but honest to goodness, it's turning out that way because a lot of the alt media to me has been compromised, unfortunately. I've always said you have to use discernment, and you kind of know if you're really one of the good guys or not. Generally speaking, I'm painting with a broad brush. If you're in a channel like mine where you've been shadow banned for over a decade and yourself, pretty much know those guys are probably doing a good job, or girls. And some of these people that go from zero to hero from 12 to 100,000 in a year might have a little help.
Yeah, they might. And especially with AI coming out now, the discernment needs to be, I mean, you need to be at your optimal level of looking at information. And even myself, when I'm generating images and Ransom and myself, we have a weekly radio program. And that's what you're talking about is the show notes that we put out after we do a 2-hour live radio show. We've transited because I went on the Tim Pool show and we flew up there and we did it. And actually seeing their studio setup, we decided to change our genre of going audio only into what you're seeing now on my backdrop here. We're still working on the lighting to get it good, but having studio conversation and inviting others in on studio conversation. So to bring show notes up for that, because we think it's real important, A, to be able to backtrack and do some of your own research on notes and points we talked about, add into those, which were things we didn't think about either. So we're, add into the conversation, but then also use it as a conversation starter for others that are, I should say, they're really receptive right now. There's an enormous amount of receptivity of people going, something's just not right. Something is way off here. And we saw how the media was unmasked for being the gaslit machine it was, to the point where just normal people are saying, everybody got lied to. I don't care if you're a donkey or an elephant, you're a purple ostrich. It didn't matter. We all got lied to so deeply, and everybody's looking at the media going, whoa, that thing has just been, how long's it been lying like that? Since my grandparents' time? Mm-hmm. You take it back into the 50s when, even the ad executives in the 1950s were saying, if the American people knew what we were doing, we'd be strung up on trees the day after. And that was in the 1950s, so bring it forward to today. So I think a lot of awareness is occurring, and it's just about having the conversation and then bringing others into the fold, because I really believe in that, what they call the 100th monkey effect, is it rolls over to that one person, and that one person creates that percentage that creates the actual change for the movement, or the change of mind, the change of observation of reality, and everybody in turn just says it stops now. Because you've looked through history, and every time enough people in our world say, no, that you can't do that anymore, that must stop, it stops every single time, 100% of the time. But it's always that awareness to bring out, to get enough people to say, whoa, that's really messed up, we need to stop that. So that's really what I'm trying to do in the conversational realms of it. Is we're at a precipice now. We got about 4 years, okay, at least on this, stage play that we're seeing. We just rolled out of communism. We come into some hopefulness for some, making money possibility again, capitalism, quote unquote. But what happens 4 years after this? That's the whole question. Is these timeframes of 4 years just get set, pulled, set, pulled, set, pulled. Okay, maybe some greatness will come out. I'm looking for a rug pull somewhere midway through this. So, the hopium that's being spit out by everybody there, please, with discernment. AI has taken over everything so quickly. So if your electrical prices are running up, look for, data centers or something like this that's in your area that's pulling that power and outbidding you on it. We're going to have to create an enormous amount more power in an instant. So, with all this alien disclosure and UFOs, alien reproduction vehicles, electrogravitics and Tesla technologies, that's all going to come out. It's going to be very disruptive. So what we're seeing right now in the world spinning, it's going to spin so fast, and it's going to have to change on a dime. Literally, as fast as we are talking today, they're going to have to come up with new electrical systems to power the new AI, cryptocurrency, and digital ID biometric world that we are being forced into on a timeline before 2030. So there's going to be a lot of things that are going to flip the lid here. And then just the political candidates that are in your face or out there in the public arena right now, it really makes me question, is anything really legitimate, or are we really looking at the best and world's largest stage play in real time going on for your amusement and your distraction? I know maybe that was a bunch to unwind there for a sign off, but anyway, that's where my mind sits today. Please feel
Well, that's
free to
our people.
respond. I'll definitely hang with you.
Oh, great. Now I'm going to leave it there. I mean, I think that's a very good reason for people to, bookmark your channel and listen to you and Ransom every 2 weeks you do that show?
Every Thursday night, and we're on TikTok. We're on Instagram, sort of, but we do long content. So to try to rip that into 1 minute or 30-minute segments of quippy bounciness, we found our medium segments of 3 to 5 minutes or 1 minute shorts are really ripping across TikTok. So please join us over there, Civilization Cycle. And our podcast has been rebranded the Civilization Cycle Podcast. And that was originally Mini Ice Age Conversations, but we wanted to come out to a wider audience and rebrand ourselves, our presentation of media in terms of what you see studio content, and then also run it on the charts with help. And I've hired, a couple other people to help me do that as well. So this information's here, it's pertinent, and we want everybody to share, and we're trying to push it as much as we can. So please sign up for the show notes, civilizationcycle.com, and be part of the conversation.
Excellent, David. Always worth every minute with you. Thank you for coming on at short notice. I always enjoy our time together, and keep on keeping on, my friend. We need you and more of you. Thank you.
See you again next time. Bye for now.